Most services and apps online are pretty much straight up lying to you about how private and secure they really are. I was literally just in bed watching Shark Tank with my dog. It was very cute. And this service came up called Keepsake. It's actually a really cool concept. The idea is this prompts you and it sends you a text message to pretty much send a photo of your child. And over time, it builds this book and it's supposed to automate and help you with the process of having like a baby book. The thing that caught my attention during the Shark Tank episode is how it all was conducted over SMS, meaning this thing was asking about information about your children. And you're also sending photos through SMS, which then ended up online, which to me is a privacy nightmare because SMS pretty much allows anybody between those two services to read those photos. So it seems like they have their own app now, but I saw something that I see on websites all the time. They say right here, is Keepsake private and secure? Absolutely, right? Which is crazy to say that something is absolutely private and secure. Any and all interaction with Keepsake is completely private and secure using 256-bit SSL encryption. Read our full privacy policy here and terms of conditions here. This is an industry-wide playbook, and it's important that you all understand how to read these phrases, these common marketing terms, so that you actually know what's safe and what that safety actually means. First, what does this mean? 256-bit SSL encryption. That sounds really cool, but really what's going on here, when you go to a website, you can do this in any of your browsers, and you go to the top and you see connection is secure, and it's going to show you some information about the certificate of the website. That's actually all this is. Let's Encrypt is a service that most sites are going to use. It's pretty standard nowadays for every website to have an SSL certificate, to the point where if your site doesn't have one, most people's browsers are going to warn them literally not to access the website. So this is a bare minimum, bare standard kind of protection that literally every site, including Facebook, TikTok, like all these platforms that are notoriously anti-privacy, have an SSL certificate. Now, it's not useless. What this does is it's verifying that you are directly communicating with Keepsake and there's no one that's able to intercept a connection. But you're still putting all of your trust in Keepsake. And I think, if you actually read their privacy policy, that's a little bit more obvious. They collect names, phone numbers, email addresses, mailing addresses, images, videos, audio clips of your children, text that you write, contact preferences, contact or authentication data. But fear not, because they say we don't process sensitive information after they list out 8 things of sensitive information. Because apparently your home address where your children are isn't considered sensitive information, obviously. But it gets worse because, again, they can still access all of your data. All that SSL certificate they're claiming is private and secure is doing is making sure that no third parties are able to pretty much hack into that connection and take the data forcefully during the transmission. And here's what's not told in this extremely misleading marketing that I would consider downright dangerous. It doesn't talk about the fact that they collect everything on your device, GPS location, IP addresses, home location, and they literally admit to processing this by delivering targeted advertising to you to market and promote communications. They use it to identify usage trends. So they straight up admit to sharing potentially your children's data with third parties who they don't even fully disclose. They just say it could be ad networks, data analytics services, data storage service providers, order fulfillment service providers. The list goes on. Sales and marketing tools. This pretty much gives them the ability and the legal backing to do whatever they want with your children's data, and there probably wouldn't be many consequences if they were to do that. And this isn't just a speculative doom and gloom concern I'm bringing up. I mean, this is exactly what happened with Life360. Life360 was this app that was designed to keep parents and children connected so you can track where your children are going. They also had a similar commitment to user privacy. We don't share, blah, blah, blah. But they were literally selling location data of, yes, children, teenagers, parents, everybody in between. They were sued for it, and that is a big no-no. But actually, if you look at the privacy policy of Keepsake, they could do exactly the same thing that Life360 was doing the whole time. Same thing here with Flow. This one was quite popular when it happened, but Flow was a period tracking app for women, and they were pretty much just sharing that user data with Facebook. And when we go to their website, this is their Flow privacy FAQ. They say, we encrypt all your data to ensure it can't be accessed by anyone except you. Your data belongs to you, and at Flow, it's never for sale. Except it was literally for sale. They were sued for it, so they are not acknowledging that history, which is its own problem. But here, they're going to mention things like certifications. So these certifications are actually a step in the right direction. They're going to point to trying to implement better practices for security, making sure that they are doing the bare minimum kind of things that companies are probably supposed to do behind the scenes. But again, it's still avoiding the big question in the room, which is, what can the service actually see about me? me? What data does it have about me? And here, when we go to how does Flow encrypt my data, here's where we actually learn what that is. We currently use the latest, most secure versions of encryption technology, including TLS, which is again the same thing. It's that SSL certificate, TLS. We also encrypt stored data and use one of the strongest encryption technologies, which is commonly used by banks, governments, and security experts worldwide. And here is the next term that I really want to lock in so that you guys know what to look out for. You see, there's encryption in transit, which we've already talked about is going to be this transport layer security. So you're going to see words like TLS or SSL or encrypted in transit. Those are the common things you're going to see. AES 256 is the encryption when your data hits their server. So again, I'm submitting data to Flow, and then, it's encrypted in transit, but then once it reaches their server, they're going to encrypt it there with AES 256. Sometimes it's going to be AES 128. However, there is a big catch here that is also not being disclosed. The reality is when your data is encrypted, it's just encrypted on the drive. But at the end of the day, Flow is still able to access that data because they actually control the encryption key to your data. Now, this might sound like a nitpicky thing for someone who's more technical, but this has huge implications. Google, Facebook, all these companies implement the same kind of encryption on their servers so that if somebody just hacks into their servers, they can't just take user data that easily. It has nothing to do with whether or not the service themselves can access your data. And so they can still sell your data, they can still access it, they can do whatever they want with it. This is still actually a bare minimum standard, and these are probably the kind of things that these certifications are going to try to guarantee. But again, it's not really a privacy discussion. This is still a service that can collect your data, they can see your data, and it's very misleading for them to say it can't be accessed by anyone except you, because the reality is they are accessing all of it, and that's how they're serving you that data. Now, here's the thing. If you are new to this channel and this is the first time you're hearing these kind of things, you're probably wondering, oh, isn't this just how services have to work? Services have to obviously know your information to provide you the service, but that's actually not true. We have different kinds of encryption that literally remove the need for you to have to trust a company. So to break down those types of encryption, we have encryption in transit, right? That's what we talked about. It's HTTPS. We have the TLS. We have SSL. Those are like different keywords to look for. That is a bare minimum standard. And if that's being sold as why something is private or something is secure, or if something is end-to-end encrypted, which is not actually what that's probably speaking to, that is a big no-no. You should really be careful of people making claims like that. Next, we have encrypted at rest, which is that AES 256 thing that we just discussed. That is going to add a bit more security, but again, the company still holds the decryption keys. So if they are compelled by law, if they're breached in a more targeted way, or they choose to access your data themselves and share it with third parties themselves, if they want to do that, they can do it. That's not what the encryption is actually targeting. Then we get to the two more interesting things that I think is really what people are unaware of a lot of times, is that there's actually something called zero-knowledge encryption and end-to-end encryption. You all probably have experience with end-to-end encryption because if you've ever sent a blue message to another iPhone user, or if you've used WhatsApp or Signal or any of these messengers, that is end-to-end encryption. So that way only you and the person you're talking to can access the actual content of your message. Zero-knowledge is a similar concept, except you're the only one that stores the encryption keys. So a lot of password managers are set up this way if you've ever used one of those. The idea is not even the service themselves should be able to decrypt it. It means that you control the encryption key on your own device, and then it syncs to their server, but the server never even sees what the data is. They don't have to decrypt it. They've pretty much built the entire service so that only you can access the data. And one of the most tangible examples I can share with you is Ring, the doorbell. They claim to have TLS, which again is the transport layer, and they also claim to have AES encryption, which is essentially them just encrypting the data on their drives, but they still have the encryption keys. Now, people don't think about the fact that Ring, who's owned by Amazon, can see literally all of your footage inside your home and outside of your home, which is quite a spooky concept because it means all their third-party contractors, all their employees, or any data breaches in the future could expose all data about you and your family members, which is quite crazy. And this is one of the reasons why they actually have an optional end-to-end encryption feature. Now end-to-end encryption in this context is more like actually zero knowledge because you're the only person with the encryption key, so it's not end-to-end end-to-end with another person. But the point is that this is an optional feature you can enable with your rings, which actually guarantees that Ring and Amazon themselves can't even access the data because you are now in control of the encryption key. Overall, this is the kind of standard that we would want and what I would be looking for if I had children and I was uploading sensitive information about them online. I think what people are missing is that even if you trust a company like Keepsake, my question to you is, do you trust every third-party contractor? Do you trust every employee in the company? Do you trust every engineer with database access? Do you trust anybody who phishes one of those engineers? Do you trust anyone who breaches access into their systems? And do you trust anyone with the legal authority to compel disclosure? Because if you don't trust all of those people I listed off, it doesn't matter how much you trust the company, you still ultimately cannot trust that service. And that is the actual benefit that real encryption provides, is that it puts more power in your court so you know exactly who can and can't access your data, which in a perfect world is only you and the people that you trust. When you're looking at a new service to sign up for, ask who holds the decryption keys. And if the answer is the service or anybody else other than you, then it's something to be aware of. It doesn't mean don't use the service. It's just you shouldn't fall for marketing that tries to convince you they can't access the data or do what they want with the data. From there, read the privacy policy if they can access your information and see just how extensive it is. There are some services out there that genuinely try to take privacy seriously. They don't use third parties and they try their best to actually gain your trust. Third question, is this encryption just in transit, at rest, or zero knowledge, or end-to-end, right? Like we need to look at where that encryption happens. And a lot of times they use these marketing terms that can help suss that out. I wrote a wiki article about this on our new wiki that I just put out. So if you want like a little bit more thoroughness and more technical information, that's the place to go. Otherwise, it's Saturday. I just wanted to push out this video really quickly because I was in bed and I'm like, you know what? I should make a video about this because I see this all the time and it kind of bugs the hell out of me because I feel like people get misled into thinking they're actually using privacy-based services when they aren't. The message is just to empower you guys a little bit more so you understand the actual trust that you're giving a company when you're about to upload your baby's photo to it. I have some issues with this myself. I like the product. I like these people. I actually think the pitch was wonderful and the guy seemed really down to earth, but I just don't think that this is a commonly discussed enough problem. So that's why I'm here. Thank you all for watching. See you next time on Techlore. Let me know if you have any questions and I'll do my best to do any follow-ups if there's any kind of recurring pattern. See you soon.